Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And as I say all the time, you're not getting sick of that Ed Sheeran song. If you've joined us a few times and heard that same song, maybe next year I'll change it. Pleased to have Tara from Arthaus Projects on there. You can hear me okay, Tara?
I can. Hello. Thank you for
Awesome.
having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining. So guys, obviously today, you've obviously seen the email, you've registered to join. We, as Buildxact, we understand that, as you guys want to use our system and start using our system, there's free training, free resources, and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you maybe want to go a little bit deeper and sort of figure out how to use it, going above what maybe we provide. So Tara is a bit of a power user of Buildxact, so I thought it'd be great to get her on just to share her opinion on how she uses it and yeah, pass on some of that wealth of knowledge to you guys, whether you're using Buildxact or it might be something you're thinking about. And maybe if you're not even using us and using something else, maybe it can give you some little tips and stuff on how you can use a lesser system better. Um, so yeah, thank you for coming on, Tara. I really appreciate it.
No, all good. And just on that as well, if you're not using this system and you are looking to level up and run multiple projects, you, like, this thing will save you coin, time, just once you set it up correctly to a way that you work within your system, and then your team will be able to use it. The benefits to just they outweigh any cost that you're outlaying for it. And yeah, that'd just be my 2 cents on that, because I work with a lot of builders who are, they're big builders, and so they've been using a system like this for years. They understand the need for purchase orders, but then there's also the crew who are just going, I want to level up. How do I do this? So yeah, this is a brilliant way for entry level and expert
Yeah,
system wise.
yeah. I mean, I travel the country and do tons of events and stuff, and I always see people that are using Excel and they're wanting to find ways of using a software. But I think a lot of the common concern is there's just so much work I need to put into it, and I think
Mm.
the way I would always say is start off small and work up to that level. You don't need to go in and kind of add every single price file and create thousands of recipes and create millions of templates and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's great to have you on to show how you work, Tara. But just want to cover off some housekeeping stuff, and probably people know from the past as well that have been on these webinars. You can just pop in any questions you have. You can use the Q&A, but preferably it's easier to use the chat, and it just encourages input on there. It's a slightly different webinar to what we normally run. So the more input we get and the more questions we kind of get, the better. Without trying to derail kind of how Tara's flow is going, but we do kind of, I guess, want to open it to questions kind of as we come on board, as they come on board. And I do have the option to let you guys talk as well if you want to, and ask a question. So it's the first time I've done that on a webinar, so we might trial it out and see kind of how we go, and a bit of a test and learn on this. But if that's something you guys are open to doing, then yeah, I can certainly allow that. Obviously, not everyone talking at the same time, but just if it helps in terms of clarifying a question that you might be asking of Tara, then it might be easier to do it via audio than just typing it in the chat. But please feel free and comfortable to pop in the chat. It'd be great to know in the chat if you can put in there that if you're currently using Buildxact or if you're not using Buildxact, or at least what you're expecting to, maybe both. So if you're using Buildxact or not using it, and then hopefully what you're looking to gain from today, just so we can kind of understand what the audience is looking for. And while everyone's doing that, just to give you guys a bit of an update on some of the things that are coming. We've got a few more webinars happening towards the end of the year. We've got one with Mates in Construction, which is going to be all around mental health, and that's obviously a bit of a concern with a lot of people in the industry. There's a Hazard Code one coming up, which we're going to be talking about the integration, and then we're about to launch a new cost tracking dashboard feature, which is with exact accounting, which is going to give you way more detail in terms of being able to see your profit and everything in much more detail on a job. So that I think is probably about 2 weeks away, I think, but by the looks of it now. And then just if any of you aren't on the Facebook page, the Buildxact building block, hop into that. It's a really great resource to ask other Buildxact users and to speak with our team and our prompt developers and things as well. So I can see a heap of chats coming in, which is awesome. So let's just quickly have a look. I can pop it out because there's a lot.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in on this as well.
Yeah.
I've had a few people reach out via email contacting me. I am actually on holiday, so I'm a bit slow on response. So next week I am back. I just wanted everyone to know I'm not ignoring you. It's just,
yeah. I think my feeling, Tara, is that you're probably going to get a few people reach out to you after this as well. So good to
And I've worked out how to use MailChimp and links on my link tree, so I'll be able to put a link in the box. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So there's people that have just signed up, looking for guidance on it, how to implement it more in your business. Not using, interested to learn. That's awesome. Currently using, loving it, seems any more features. So that was from Stuart. Yeah, Stuart, I think there's going to be some of those little nuggets to be able to help you on there today. So current user, commercial, using Buildxact for 3 months. So a lot of new people using Buildxact. So it's a really good session to run on this, just to kind of give you an idea on where you maybe want to get to. Recently signed up. Yeah. Either want to learn, currently using recipes. Cool. Awesome. So a lot of people that have been using it for a little bit have just signed up. So for the people that have just signed up, I think, and we'll go through this obviously, Tara, as we get into the session, but I think some of how Tara does things, bear in mind she's been using it for a number of years now and does this as part of her business. So to get to that level where Tara's at is going to be not something the new people are going to be able to jump into instantly, but it's good to have a pathway of how to get there and start small, start easy, and kind of work the way up. So Benjamin is Tara's client. That's awesome.
Hey, Benny.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is really just around kind of some of the newer users and existing users that want to understand how to use it more efficiently. Sorry, guys, a ton. Sorry, I'm not reading everyone out there. There's a ton of questions. So Tara, while I'm reading these, John has asked if you can go into a little bit more detail about your business and your role, if that would be cool as an intro.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I am Arthaus Projects, and I guess my background experience, I've been doing this for, I think it's either 12 or 13 years. I should know that because I deal with maths every day, but I'm not going to go into that exact number, but it's a long time. And so I've learned from project building was where I cut my teeth, I guess. Accidentally fell into this. There's no study or anything involved, just took on a role and went with the challenges that came. But having that understanding from a project scope is to really dot the I's, cross the T's, have those processes in place, and which is what then leads into how I set up my template, because the template is always going to be the same process for a procedure to then estimate and go to site. So that's just one aspect of how I'm running, I guess, Arthaus Projects, and how I'm running, working with my builders. Sorry, and then I guess onto my experience and other things, project scopes. I've done hospitals, I've done retail, commercial, pretty much anything. I'll jump in and have a go, and if I don't know, then I'll ask the correct people. That's one really big thing I think from my side, is if I don't know, I'm okay to say, can you help me? And that's part of what my business is as well, as helping a lot of the builders who you might be established or you might be new, but sometimes you do need your hand held on certain things, because even to how to correctly do stage claims for a project to get to site through the bank, like that's important stuff. And that's what we build as part of, working in Buildxact as well, is everything that we're structuring is so that we can get to those stage claims to then get the project on site, get banking and building efficiently. Yeah, so that's I guess a basic overview of how that we work from inception to delivery and all those bits in between.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I noticed when I start speaking to Tara is that, like, everything when she's using Buildxact, there's a process and a meaning behind doing things, and that will help you kind of further along as you go through. But we can get going. I just want to quickly respond to George there. So George, you teach building students. Yeah, just reach out to me directly. We do have a kind of a student license. So I'll just put my email in there for anyone else that wants to reach out to me as well. But maybe we can get going. And just obviously, something to raise here as well. How Buildxact teaches and how we tell you to use Buildxact, and then how Tara uses Buildxact. There's no necessarily like 100% the way you have to do it. So pick and choose kind of what bits you want to take from us and what bits you want to take from Tara, and find your own middle ground as well. So every business is going to be different. How you want to work is going to be different as well. So this is Tara's run through on how she works in her projects. And obviously the way she works is very, very process driven to get the most efficiency through the job. So yeah, Tara, are you cool to share your screen, open up Buildxact if that's okay?
Yep, I can do that.
Awesome.
Okay, can everybody see this clearly?
Yep, it's there for me.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So I've got a set template or method of how I estimate. So every single project's always going to have the same items allocated to it. And it's just a matter of getting rid of the ones that I don't need. Because that way, whether I'm looking at it, the builder or the supervisor, the same headings are always going to apply and the same similar content will always be in there. And I find setting it up that way means that, you might have a team of people working, but everyone kind of knows that flow. And that's something that's really important to start, especially if you're a new user. Have that set up from the get-go so that you're already learning and sort of making that as a standard as part of your processes. And so when I'm putting together an estimate, we're looking at project management, site supervision, and admin as a separate to anything else that goes on in this, because across a project, this is always going to be your constant. So the bottom line where you've got earthworks, you might have steel reo, that's a variable that can always change because a client might have a reduction in scope, but your project management across a job is always going to stay the same. So what we do here, working that out across the job with the weeks, and you work out your site supervisor and your CA allowances across that time.
So Tara, just to jump in there, so this is your template, and is it for a particular type of project, or is this the one that you use as a flat to get going for any sort of new build, for example?
So this would be used as just like a single level. Actually, no, I could use this for anything. Sorry. Yeah, I could literally use this for anything because I work custom. So you just customize it, and that's the beauty of the system. You just drop another line item and sweet.
Yeah, you get to go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those who aren't familiar that much with templates and Buildxact or not using it, this is a template that you create. So what you put into this at the start in your template will be used again and again and again with just changes that you need to make on a specific job. So as you can see, Tara puts a lot of work in her template, which then saves her work every other time she does it, rather than just having to type all this stuff in every single time.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the big things as well, I love this notes feature. So under each of the headings, you'll see you can add notes. And so across my template, I'll always have the same note structure because I'm always going to have to fill the same stuff in. Project management, allowing, 6 months, 24 weeks, and then anything else that you want someone else to know, because these notes up here are what whoever picks this estimate or the job up, that's their reference sheet almost. If I've been talking to, I don't know, Dave at the flooring shop, I'll put those notes up in my notes section, their quote details, phone number, and then the date, so that it's almost a date stamp in the job, as well as having all of the quote information, in your filing system on your server or your OneDrive. So that's a really important thing to get into the habit of. And that's a really good thing for your supervisor to then refer to as well when you're on site.
Yeah, definitely underutilized, I think, that notes function. I think people kind of just think it's just a few comments, but you can put a whole paragraph of information in there.
Yeah.
As you see there.
Items. There. Us. Your bins. So why have I allowed that many bins? Oh, this is why. Or, you know, if your bins have gone over, oh, we actually needed another 2 on Blockworks, or we've given too many bins. So it's just these little things that you can then look at and track back in through what you're allowing for. Just that communication without actually having to communicate, which I love, because, you know, when you do something, you should do it right the first time. But if someone's got to ask a question, you've got actual evidence of why something has been done. I think that makes a really good, probably makes a good estimator and a good project manager. Because if you can make sure that you've got that information that everyone can clearly see how and why, then it saves you time down the long, you know, on the job, which is what we're all about, efficiency. And you'll also see here as well, when I'm setting out my actual structure, I put these little dots up here. And I do that because when I'm building my information through my estimate, I'm also building this for my specification on the other end. Again, this is me doing a cost saving efficiency, because I should be able to build everything from this side. All these notes, in theory, should be what my client then gets to see as part of why a project costs $909,000. And that's what we're doing with this as well. Yeah, we're providing the numbers and the content, but we want to be able to sell the dream at the end of it as well and be able to justify it. And so putting these little headings here means that I can split all of this content up. So when it reads, it's very clear. Otherwise, you'd have, you know, 30 or 40 line items, and I don't know what that references to. And my brain, I look at that and my brain would just explode. Like, I would just not deal with it. So I created a unit of measure with a heading and I sorted it out. So that's the reason I'm putting those dots in there. And I find a lot of the builders and the crew that I work with, they find that really beneficial too, because it just reads really clear. And it's just an extra step, you know, drop the line in and it's done.
Yeah, so Tara, just while we're on that point, someone asked, I've just lost the question now where it was, but about the internal notes, if that comes up in the quote. This is only for I just saw Sherelle saying my OCD brain, thanks you. I'm really OCD with certain things as well. I have to put the exact same mugs in the same mug. I can't have 2 different color mugs sitting in on top of each other. So I understand, Sherelle. The notes are all internal. And then as Tara's kind of saying, the lines will show up to the client if you want it to show up to the client's file. So you don't have to show, like what Tara's doing, to show it in specifications, or you don't have to show it in the quote letter, but you can if you want to.
Yeah, this is all optional. This is totally optional. These will never be shown to the client unless you're showing them the actual estimate costings, your BOQ or your bill of quantities, which you shouldn't, because that's your private business workings, but, you know, each to their own. But yeah, this is then what goes to the client. Whatever the S is, specification, is what we show to them. And so I try and put as much information in there to sell it.
Yeah, we'll show you how this looks in a second. Everyone's trying to get to the next 20 minutes now.
Yeah. Like, what's it look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's two of the big things for me, is having the notes and then structuring it so it reads really clearly on there. And then also any of your where have I got one? Here we go. Okay. And another really big thing for me is preparing all this information from what you might get back as a quote. So your roof demolition quote, you would drop that in as a quoted item, roof demolition as per quote, and then reference the actual quote number and the company. You put their details up here, you know, roof demo by, I don't know, CT demo, date, phone, quote. Doesn't take long to dump those 4 things in there, because that information, obviously, track back, you can see that. But what this one does here, setting this up, again, 2 seconds, when you go to the job screen and you've created a job, all you're having to do is click 1. You've already got the quote number and the quote company, and you can just order it straight away. You're not having to backtrack into your estimate or go through a spreadsheet or anything to try and figure out who your roof demo was by. So just literally do it like this, done. Like, it's just a super, super simple cost saving, item. And then underneath all of this, you put in your actual scope of works. So, demolish, roof, sheets, add a heading, done. Then that can become your specification on the next page. You shouldn't be showing the actual quote info to the client unless it's a PS and you want to open that up. Otherwise, you just have the heading and then your actual specification underneath that you built from the quote that the contractor has provided, or the scope of works that you yourself have written. And then that transfers over. Then when we go to the job, the actual job itself, we can order it. Those two buttons, done. So
Tara, am I right in saying what I guess you're doing is effectively creating a subheading for the demolition, for example? Then you've got the cost of it from the quote, and then you're creating a specifications line that goes to the client to tell the client what it is, rather than creating a specifications line for the actual quote itself.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly that. Awesome. That's a really easy way of explaining it that I've never done. But yeah, that's exactly how I'm trying to, that's what I'm doing, yes.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here to try and because you're so embedded in this. I'm there to try and decipher it.
Perfect. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how I do it. And I might have, here we go. That I've done one here. So termite treatment. As per quote, here we go. And then you do your spec. Because sometimes when we're doing an estimate, we might not necessarily get the quote back yet. So I've got my rates that I can do, and I can get my rough, it might be 3K worth of termite treatment. Once I get the quote back, sweet as, I can enter that quote in, and then I've got all of this information that I can just go, spec for. Remove those costings, and then I've already got my spec.
Yeah, there is a question there, Tara, about using the request for quote feature. So obviously, if you're using the request for quote feature in Buildxact, that would come in for you. So you would still potentially apply the other principles of having a heading, and then what Tara's saying about adding something into specifications, and then having the request for quote information come in below that instead of just typing it in manually. So that could still be worked the same way.
Oh, absolutely. And I probably do this a bit different because I don't use the request for quote function. It's not, I just don't roll with that because I mark everything up on a PDF and write scopes of works on an email or a Word document that I can send out, just so I can track it kind of my own admin method easier. But yeah, the request for quote, people really do enjoy that function. It's just something that doesn't work within how I operate.
Yeah, I think when you're working for a bunch of different builders, it does become a little bit harder to manage requests for quotes. Whereas if you're the builder doing it yourself on your own platform, you've already got all your suppliers and who you work with set up, ready to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if you're kind of doing a bit of cookie cutter work, it's perfect because it's the same stuff. Yeah. For sure. All right. Be another.
So you guys will hopefully see what I meant around Tara is very, very process driven. And one of the things that I always say to people is that I think a lot of people will estimate how they estimate and then build how they build. And there's a bit of double up happening in that. And what you're kind of seeing is that although Tara's method probably takes a little bit longer and a bit more structured to get it up and running, once you have your template kind of functioning in that way, that becomes easier and easier and easier over time. And the work that you put in now will help in terms of managing the job and managing that communication with the client.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything I do is, like, I'm an estimator, but I'm also a project manager, but I'm also a CA. So everything I do is very hybrid, and it's to accommodate the fact that I don't want to be only estimating, doing one role, and then someone else has to do another bit and someone else has to do another bit. So if we can set it up here, the efficiencies that we gain from this point and being able to have the supervisor run it on site with minimal, disjointness, means that we're going to gain, the bottom line for everybody. We want to get a bit more of that markup, a bit more of that margin. So if we can avoid erosion by setting things up now, easy enough.
Yeah.
I think, spend that extra, might take you an extra 2 day or full day or whatever, overall, but it's so worth it for streamlining. It's so worth it. Yeah. And I work with a lot of different builders at different phases. And yeah, that's one of my big things that I would suggest to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, another thing on this as well is I don't know if everybody rolls with a contingency to a project. If you don't, it's something to think about. Whether it's percentage or an overall price, it's a good thing to take into consideration across a job, every job. Yeah.
How are you with things like recipes and stuff, Tara? Have you got things set up or?
I do. So recipes, I use some. I'm not a avid recipe user, again, because I work with so many different builders and everything is a bit custom. Sometimes they do lag a bit for me. So I'll just go in and do things manually. Probably also, again, how my brain works. But no, recipe, it's a pretty cool function. Again, if you're doing things which are all the time, bagging, brickwork, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some pretty cool recipe templates that you guys provide as part of this as well.
Yeah. So one of my especially for the people that are newer to Buildxact, what I would say is that when you start using Buildxact, when you start creating recipes, don't feel the need to have to go and put every single thing in there. Start with the major items and the major costs, which generally, your labor cost is always going to be up there. And just slowly over time, build that out, to help you. Because I do sometimes see people where they'll just add everything in and try and do too much, too hard. So my main advice is get as much of supplier integration Brianna, I'll come to that in a second. So get your supplier integration set up. So for those of you who don't know, we've got Bunnings nationwide for Power Pass. There's a ton of Mitre 10 stores, and then depending where you are in the country, if you're in Brisbane, we have Brett's. There's a bunch of them all over, which you can connect your live pricing files to. And the way live pricing works is that, say you use a timber item from Bunnings, for example, or you've got it might be even an Excel sheet that you're getting from the supplier and you're loading it in and you're keeping it up to date by loading it in every time. You pick an item from that integrated price file, that price goes up, say for a piece of timber, and that is something you've used on a single story new build template, a double story new build template, an extension, whatever it is. That timber price goes up. Anytime you start a new estimate that item is used in, that price change is going to kick in for you. So let's say, for example, you've got an Excel sheet from a Beaumont Tiles location that you live near, and they give you an Excel sheet. You load that into Buildxact. Use those tiles in your template when you're creating it. That price goes up because you've loaded a new price file. Buildxact works out the change, and then it will update from that. What a recipe is, I think that was from Brianna somewhere. So if you haven't used Buildxact before, or you're just starting out, a recipe is basically when you're trying to work out multiple items that goes off of one measurement. There's probably a better way I can define that, but basically I kind of always say it is like baking a cake. If you have one cake, for every one cake you have, you need, 4 eggs. For every one cake you need X amount of flour. So Tara's actually shown one up here as well for supply and install for a brick.
Yeah.
Move my camera and stuff out of the way so I can actually see what Tara's showing. There's so many little boxes all over the screen, but as you can see there, and hopefully I'm getting this right, Tara, on what I'm saying, but per square meter, Tara's put in 54 bricks. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, 54 bricks. And then, so she's put in, ties. So everything is based off of 1 square meter. Sorry, go on.
Just on that supply, remember to add your wastage. If you're doing a recipe, you got to add wastage to whatever your supply is. Yeah. And then your actuals categories, wherever you want your money to be taken from when you send a purchase order, actuals.
Yeah. So the way this would work is that you build your recipes out to hopefully make and assuming you do this right, it makes your calculation of your quantities and what you need to order later on in the job much easier. So if this is a little bit complicated, the example I always use is if you're sort of hanging a door, and it might be, on the plan, you just go door, 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 door. So that would be an each when you're doing the counting on the plan, which would just give you a little dot on the plan. And for every door you need, so it'll be supply and install door or hang door, whatever, each will be the unit of measure. The next line down would be for every door that you're hanging, you need one door. For every door that you're hanging, you need 2 or 3 hinges, for example. So that's kind of the easiest way to break down recipes, but don't necessarily feel that you need to go and add every single little line item into there. Like for me, I always say just pick your, at the start, pick your main material or materials, the labor, and then you could always have like just a miscellaneous line potentially underneath it, just until you've got the hang of it. So you might say, I'm not going to put screws, nuts, and bolts in there. I may decide not to put it in at all, but I might also decide to put in, I don't know, $3 a square meter, $5 a square meter, whatever you do.
So you have an allowance to cover, but
exactly.
you might not actually know.
Yeah. There's that kind of thing of just trying too hard to go into things that really aren't going to make a difference. Like, I mean, you really don't need to go into that much detail on pricing some of the smaller items. So
yeah. I mean, you generally work out how many boxes you need of your PAS loads or whatever against whatever you're doing. And for myself, I don't actually nominate fixings because everybody's got so many different guns and so many. I just went, you know what? We're going to pull the money together, and you just get an allowance, and then you just draw down on that, and it works. Like that's, guys and girls are happy with that. So
yeah. It's kind of like what we said, Tara, at the start. There's like a million different ways to skin a cat on how you set Buildxact up. I mean, I see people will break their estimate down into bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, which personally I would never do on using it. But people like doing it that way. And, you could also just have a miscellaneous category that factors in all of, fixings and fittings and all that kind of stuff. You could have a category purely for labor. There's no right or wrong way. It's how it works for you and, what you want to get out of the system.
Yeah, exactly. You just figure out what works. So my crew will get supervisor consumables, and that can be for anything on a job that supervisor needs that we can't really account for. Rags, new discs. You've got a pool of money that they can draw down on. The only thing is, if you're going to get your supervisors to do that, they need to be either making a purchase order every time they go to Bunnings or Total Tools or wherever. Otherwise, it's going to drive your accounts person insane because they'll go, what is this for? There is nothing allocated. So that's a big thing is, moving from the estimating over to the on-site things is educating yourself around purchase orders and how important it is to actually, one, use them because it becomes a legal currency to your job and locks everybody in on, Tyler, you've got 13K and this is why. But it also encourages you to really understand where your costings are as well, because you can see, like I've given that much out, and when you have money that's being allocated and coming in, you see your little overs and unders. So you'll have a red or a green, and we always want to be in the green, but if we're in the red, why has that happened?
Yeah, and that's going to change a lot, Tara. We've spoken about this before with that new cost tracking stuff that's coming in. So you're going to be able to see when you go over budget, you're going to be able to see what the impact that is to your profit margin. So you expected to start a job and have a 60, 70K profit at the end of it. Something's gone over. We're now looking at not a 60, 70K profit. We're now looking at 50K profit. And you can slowly see that eroding down or boosting up. On your ability. So the more accurate you can get with your purchase orders and your estimating process, the more, hopefully more accurate your predictions are going to be in your profit in the end as well.
Yeah, exactly. Again, just setting it up, streamlining it'll all help. And also when you're estimating is, looking at a project, sitting down and really thoroughly looking at a project and thinking, how do I stage this from, if a client says I've only got 500K, but this thing's going to land at about 800, looking at it and analyzing and breaking out the stages where you can present something to them to say, hey, I can actually get you this whole house done. We're just going to have to stage the outside works. But doing that from an early point, like for yourself, but also with your trades and getting them to break out those certain scopes when they're quoting will just save you heaps of time. So that's more of probably an analyst estimating exercise, but also lends into being able to break things out in your figures in your Buildxact. And by, maybe breaking out a few of those things in the cost headings, like we had, where are we? With your hire items, or your might be earthworks, and you might have earthworks house, earthworks outside. And if you're not going to be using the outside, not require it, and you can already remove that 5K really quickly without having to rejig anything, because you've spent a bit of time building it. But then this function that you can just go, boom, see ya. Like,
yeah,
it's so
I
good.
mean, it's the same thing with doing, a timber frame, a steel frame, for example. You're doing one or the other, just remove it from the quote. That's one of those features that's probably not used as probably as much as it should be.
Oh, I love it. I think it's great. Like, you can get really crafty. I know it's real nerdy, like whatever, it's what I do, but it's really it's pretty powerful when you understand how to work those numbers and do things really efficiently, because, like, man, it takes so long to quote jobs. And I'm pretty sure everyone here will attest to the fact that estimating is pretty boring. Like, it can be really dry, really boring. Like, we can do things
Buildxact
to
makes
make
it fun, Tara.
That's what I'm getting to. I'm getting to that. If we can all work with a system like this and it's streamlines and it's beautiful, then chef's kiss,
Yeah.
I did actually jump a stage. I'm really sorry. So regarding how we build all this out, and it goes to the specification. So up the top here, we'll have our specifications tab, and where I've built all those little blue S's brings all that information over here. And so this is where it loads up for the client to then see, like, the little storybook of what we're selling or what we're doing. General conditions. These are my standard notes, but man, I will load this up contractually, because this is where we cover ourselves as the builder. So if you've got anything, Appendix A, Gs, whatever, you're charging variations at $250 admin plus your margin. Plus, in Queensland, we've got to pay an extra Q levy every time we put through a variation. Add those notes in, because the amount of times that my builders have been saved by check your general conditions because I put a note for that, it's insane. Like, really spend the time contractually to look at those kind of things. And yeah, but that's just another thing. It's a side note. So that's not estimating, but that's just contractually how you can use this system. Like, yeah. So yeah, this is how. Sorry, you go.
I was gonna say, Tara, I might just, if I can, before we jump into this, because we're gonna get heaps of questions on this, I think, but I just want to cover off some of the questions we had in from the previous section, if you're okay with me to do that. So contingency, Adam, yeah, you can add contingency in the markup section. Obviously, Tara adds it in as a line. Sorry, my little one's just got back from swimming, so he's you can probably hear me at the moment. And now he wants to say hello when I'm on a webinar. Sorry, guys. So yeah, Stephen, sorry guys, I got a bit lost track there. So yeah, I understand. Yeah, subbies and suppliers sometimes push back on the RFQ stuff. Hopefully, longer term that will change. I do understand that it is a bit of a challenge though. So we cover the recipe. Debbie on the Rawlinson's cost guide. There's nothing from Rawlinson's that I believe comes straight in as an integration to us. Well, that there isn't. But if you can get information as an Excel sheet somehow, then you can always load that in as well. Can you please show how to make items within recipes appear in your estimate costing template? Can you please make it? So when you create a recipe so this is TN, when you create a recipe in your Buildxact file, a cost category, you'll be able to go in and actually drill down into it. I think that's hopefully what you're saying. It will show as blue. So if it's a blue line, blue text, that means a recipe. If it's a black or gray text, it's just an individual text item.
And they do copy across on your templates as well. So anything you put in here is just going to copy.
Yeah. So Ben, if I use a recipe for multiple categories, e.g. internal walls, may include framing material, insulation, plaster, is there a way to split these into different purchase orders and costing lines? Yeah, I believe when it comes through, you should be able to raise separate purchase orders against the same recipe. So, for example, a recipe you might have the materials and then the labor. You're not going to raise a purchase order for the labor to go to Bunnings, for example. So you can raise separate purchase order against those individual lines. How do I show a client their door as a PC item without showing them the rest of the recipe? Good point. Let me take that one offline, unless you know that one, Tara.
No, no. Again, I'm not a recipe aficionado,
Yeah, yeah.
so I don't know the answers to that. Old school PCPS button.
Yeah, I think as soon as you put it as a
Yeah,
PC, I think it will start showing everything on that.
yeah,
So Buildxact does have pre-made recipes. I wouldn't say they're the most accurate in terms of pricing, but it definitely is to use as a guideline. But it should show up if you go into your catalogs. It should show up in the recipe catalogs there. Sue, managing variations to a project. We probably won't go deep into variations because that's more of a kind of the job management side of it. But if we have time, maybe Tara, you can quickly just kind of go through how you would do it at the end.
That's cool.
So yeah, Anthony on the how do you factor in variations against the initial estimate. So when you with a variation, when you're effectively removing one line and replacing it with something else. So you're effectively removing the initial estimated cost and adding the new one in. So it should calculate based on that.
Yeah, it does. It basically brings it in as a negative, and then you add all that fresh down the bottom, which is a new function. They didn't used to do that, so
Yeah.
it's good. It's really good.
Sherelle's comment there: champagne drink is on a beer budget.
Oh, yes, haven't we all?
Yeah. I think the prices have gone up so much in the last 5 years that I think people, haven't caught up mentally about what the actual price is to build.
To a degree, some are really understanding of it, and they understand. Actually, you know what? On that, sorry, as the builder or designer, whoever, push back on scope. If a client's like, I don't have $1 million to do this, figure out what they can do in $1 million. Like, drop a bit of scope, make an alternative. I know people hate it. Don't spend so much on the stone. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's an uncomfortable conversation to say to somebody, this is what it costs, but because they can't afford it, we shouldn't lose contracts completely over it. We have to massage that expectation and how we get something on site. And a smaller scope doesn't necessarily mean less money, because it actually can mean a quicker turnaround, which means more profit. So always remember that when you're reassessing, a job, I guess.
Yeah. Dan's mentioned there, build 12 homes at a time. So it's that kind of thing of having purchasing in bulk and then having it, how do you sort of manage that through the job? So Dan, I think when we have two-way zero integration, which is coming, from my understanding, and don't quote me on saying this, but from my understanding, the way it's going to work is that it will come into Buildxact and then you can apportion it across the job. That's my understanding. But again, don't quote me on that, but we'll hopefully be solving that when that comes out. So Lauren, I think you mentioned there about applying each item or section separately. I think that might have been in terms of the specifications. I think you're referencing about when you're ticking the S on them. Sorry, and yeah, Ben. So markup can be done either line by line, category level, or on the job overall. So it's up to you how you do that. So you could have like a 20-25% markup, and then there's a particular item, for example, that is just really difficult for you to source and install, that you might decide to add another 10% on that particular line, or you decide 10% flat on a particular category or something like that. Can you move line items like that instead of the full category? Sorry, now I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if Tara, if you. That was about 8 minutes ago, so I'm not sure when.
Move category items. So to move line items, little 4 dots here. To then
maybe that was
move your categories again.
Okay. Can the job be shared to client portal without accepting the quote? At what stage does the estimate have to be locked? So, Brianna, in theory, the estimate being locked is really kind of more to stop you kind of going in and making any changes that you shouldn't be making. So the estimate can always be pulled back from being locked. Now, obviously, we probably wouldn't recommend you doing that too often, but if there's something that you need to change from a text perspective or something like that, then obviously you can always go in. But really, we're kind of at a point where once technically the estimate is accepted is really when we're saying the contract is signed. So anything changes on top of that, probably more going to be in variations. So yeah, Sherelle 280, yeah, it is coming. It's being worked on. Naomi, live pricing for Brett. Go into the integration section. From there, there'll be supplier integrations, and then Brett should show up. Okay, we'll go into the spec. I know Gillian's asking for that. We'll come back to questions afterwards, guys. But yeah.
All right, cool. So back to spec. All those little items that we've been putting in little s brings it out. And so as you can see here, all those little dots is what separates that information. Just reads so much clearer. See if I've got one which is really content heavy. Might not. Yeah. No. So yeah, some of these specs, I mean, I build huge detail into them, but that also calls for the level of detail against the project as well. Because in my mind as well, I think, if someone's going to be spending, even if they're spending 150,000 with you, they should still get the same level of detail and service from you because they're still an important, person or client in your business. So it doesn't take too much to put this effort together. And then this is what goes into our quote letter. Oh, sorry, back on that. Match at costings order. So this button here is huge because when we're building our estimate costings, if you're dumping in new line items or you're moving things around, you're like, oh, no, I'm going to reorder this or reorder that. If this doesn't display the same on your specification document here, unless you go match costings order, and then it does. So that's like one thing. If you're building that specification from your estimate and you want it to be read in a certain way, I build my estimate the same way that I want my spec to read because I build the estimate the way the job gets built. And that's how I want my spec to read. So the client goes, oh yeah, from the ground up is what we're doing. So match costings order, reorders everything, and it all presents really neatly the same way that your estimate does. So that's a really important function to keep in mind if you're making amendments and you're doing your spec this way as well. So then from that, all that level of detail, we go over to here to make our quote letter. And this, oops, sorry, someone else's logo in there. This is just how it all presents in, all your items, and you can select these individually how you want to as well across there with the different tabs. And so the allowances, for example, provisional sums and PC items that we're building in our estimate costings, I always have these shown separate in through here. And so the client can just see, oh yeah, cool, my PS item, my cabinetry equals this, and this is why it equals that. Done. And always remember as well, when you're building a PC and a PS item, remove your markup from it. You only want your client to see the raw cost because you don't want them to go, oh yeah, sweet, I've actually got $110,000 worth of cabinetry. But in reality, you actually only have, 90 because your markup is in there. So it's really important to make sure that that button is ticked. And I'll go back into that so we can have a look what I mean.
And how it distributes, Tara, yeah?
Yeah. So cabinetry works. PS item. Here we go, provisional sum, because it's a material and a trade or labor. Making sure that the E is ticked, because what that does is then spreads any of that markup that would have been applied to that item back across the rest of the job. And just gives you raw cost. I do that across the rest of the job. And sometimes some of my builders go, oh, yeah, but, pushes everything else. All the other items then look inflated. But you've just got to have that conversation with the client and say, look, it's just what happens. Everyone knows that we're applying markup to a project. We're entitled to do it. It's how we make money. So you've got to just have that confidence, I think, to say to them, that's what's happened and that's why. But this is your raw cost for your cabinetry or your tapware or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
think
it's really important.
it depends on what you show in the quote as well, Tara, right? So if you're showing every single layer of detail, then obviously the clients are going to see things are going to be higher. If you're not showing that level of detail, then it's not going to show.
Yeah. So some people might want to only show a full end figure plus their PCPS items. And that's okay. Some people want to open the entire thing up. It's all just a preference on how you operate and want to operate with your businesses or business, sorry.
Yeah. So Tara, just to confirm there on your specifications, do you have anything preloaded into your specifications, or is it entirely built from your estimate as you're ticking S on the way down?
Fully built from my estimate.
Fully built.
The only thing that ever gets amended from the spec tab is the general conditions. And that's the thing that I load up individually across each job, each builder, whatever the region is. But yeah, everything else is built from the estimate. And that's because, again, it's one of my time efficiencies. I don't want to have to go into another tab, do that, and then go, oh, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So if so for the people that are building homes that you're using more similar items and things like that in your specifications, you can load that in as part of your template. So when your template starts, you might have already got your general selections that you have in there. So you might have your choice of 5 different tiles in the bathroom, for example. You can preload all of that stuff in there with the pictures already loaded in. And then when Tara's going in and adding all the S's to it, it just adds anything additional to that level. So I said, Tara completely custom builds it from scratch using that S button. But if you do, if you're not building it into the same level of detail that Tara is, you can preload some of this spec list already in there from your template.
Yeah, absolutely. And I work with some builders who are project builders. So we just have the same thing every time. And all you're literally doing is changing your square meters of tiles. So it's just going to be the same thing. Like it doesn't, it's whatever way is going to work for you. And it's just something I think you have to figure out yourself. And I know heaps of people go, oh, I just can't be bothered doing that. It's like, well, I understand that, but this is going to save you time and money, and it's painful, yes, but once it's done, it's done.
Yeah. I mean, Ben said there he's got 1,200 spec items preloaded in there. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Ben.
that's a bit.
Yeah, and this is, I think Ben's probably finding that as well, is that probably that first stage of work probably took Ben, a fair chunk of work to do. But assuming, Ben, now that once you're at this point, it's a bit easier kind of moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, that's the reason the estimating costings translates over to our specification and then our quote letter with all our spec information and our numbers and however you want to break out, your provisional sums or your PC items as well. But just always remember to remove the markup from it. Yeah. So for this one, we've just provided a full price. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you can apply different presets as well in your specification. So if you've got like if you're doing sort of slightly more project build kind of style, you could have builder's reign specifications list, a tier up, a tier up, a tier up, and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
you can, and this is kind of what I was saying earlier on about finding the position that works well for you in terms of how you structure your Buildxact account and your estimating process.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of trial and error on that. Yeah. This is just the process that works well for myself and my builders. And it might not necessarily work for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tara, I'm not sure if you've missed this bit, or maybe I missed it. But the match costings order button.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
remember people, we had this session before and people were pretty happy with that. So
Oh, I think it's great because we used to do it manually, and it was very well. As you can see, there's so much content in this thing. So like, yeah, it's a time saver. So whoever invented that needs a high five in your department.
yeah, I'll find
Like,
out.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell how I would start the estimate and finish the estimate in the sense of, you know, getting it to the point of his for the client. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm.
And I have some really good information there. I wonder if we can just jump into some of these questions because I'm sure
Yep.
I kind of see them pop up as they come up. So I'll just see where I got to initially. Um, da, 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 So yeah, Ben kind of just made a general comment there about the architects are creating above the client's expectations, so that builders never going to be able to reach. I
Never.
didn't realize that was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so.
I mean, and hey, that's something that we're contending with. It's not new. So we can't be constantly going, you know, I know exactly what you're saying, but we, as the experts in this field of, we're the ones who build it. It's our job to then say, well, no, this is actually the expectation of what has to happen, and this is why. And this is why we're putting this level of detail into it and breaking it out from that early phase of all the different scopes of work with our trades, and even to our methodology of how we build it. It's like, if I can have my machine on site for an extra 2 days, but I can save having to then do a dig, which is going to take me longer at the end from just the way I'm structuring it, man, just PM that. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, MYOB and QBO is going to be as part of the 2A zero integration, 2A accounting integration. Zero is going to be the first cab off the rank as far as I'm aware. Working through your new estimate that you've made a template. So yeah, Tara, so you've got a template and you're working through everything. How do you make sure that the updated cost and quantities are done based on the new project?
Against a new project. So
yeah.
For every project, we are quoting from the particular trade or supplier. So there's two ways in which I approach an estimate is a QBE, high level quick build estimate, where we run, looking at different scopes, rates, etc. against it. Once we're to the contract estimation, that's where we'll send out to our trades and suppliers for refined pricing against our takeoff that we build as the bill of quantities, or the schedule of finishes that we get from the designer. So my actual costings are built off the individual builders' suppliers. If that answers the question. Otherwise, if you are someone who's got your own set of rates in there, you just have to make sure that you're updating that with your trades and your suppliers getting on the phone.
Awesome. Benjamin message regarding the app. So the app they're kind of scoping out at the moment about what the next sort of run of development works is going to be worked on. So Benjamin, if you can join the Facebook page and definitely pass your feedback on what you'd like to see. The team at Buildxact are actually in that Facebook page quite a lot, so that feedback does get taken on board. So James, can Buildxact add a heading line option? Kind of the same to Benjamin's point above. Just be vocal about what you're asking for. So ideally, the Facebook page is a really good place to do that. Or you can do through the feature suggestions in here.
Yeah, or you just make a catalog item, like one of your own unit of measures is what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything kind for adding in options and upgrades where the cost doesn't add to the total? Darren, I'm not sure I completely understand that one. So you're saying
hang on. Is that, for example, you might have, I don't know, a tile at 50, but the upgrade option might be $60. And instead of actually wanting to affect the amount,
just displaying to the client that they can go up if they want. Is that?
Yeah, if that's what you're talking about, I would generally build that. I would have, let's say, the tiles at the 50, and then I would copy that down to another cost estimate costing tab to make another one of these, copy that down, and then add in the 60 a square. And then I can get my difference of whatever that is against the whole thing, if that's what you mean. And then you just got to maybe nominate it as a line item somewhere, just wording, not cost. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean the other way is that you could add something into the specifications, like an upgrade line that shows the specifications. That if the client wants to pick this, then you potentially could. You could maybe have it in as a selection option, like an upgrade selection, so that it'll come back into Buildxact that way.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a few different ways that you could probably do it, but I guess there's no completely perfect way on how that works.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like it's the most questions we've had. So I'm like scrolling up, like I'm doing all the way up to. Again, so sorry if I'm missing any of these. Can item be dragged in from a supplier's catalog at this point? So yeah, an item, you can use an item from a supplier catalog if that's what you're asking, Brianna. And then yeah, technically you could show that in the specifications. Yeah, Susie, I think like, I've got your note there about you saying feeling a bit overwhelmed. Obviously this is a lot of detail in terms of how Tara works, but she's obviously been using it for a while as well. So the way I say to people that are getting going is don't try and do too much with the system, and even potentially continue how you're doing it currently, which for a lot of people is a manual desktop thing, and just use Buildxact on the side to that. So you've always got your safety blanket of what you're used to on one side, and then you're also just trying to figure out how that works in Buildxact. So that might just be adding category totals as what single line into Buildxact just to get you going. So you might say, well, I've rolled up all my concrete, it's going to cost it, I don't know, 60 grand or whatever. In your concreting section, just add 60 grand as a line item in there. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's a really simple way to get going in terms of how you first start using it. And then you go, that 60 grand, the next time you do a project, that 60 grand might be, 30 grand for materials, 30 grand for labor, for example. And then over time, you just start building that out. Then the next time you do it, that line item is now an integrated price file. So now you don't necessarily need to go and check all those item costs on their own. It comes in from a supplier, for example. So maybe concrete was a bad example, but Bunnings item, for example, comes in. So over time, you just build it out further and further. So you don't need to go, very, very deep at the start when you're doing that. So Dan, this is one for you, Tara. I think, should you not keep your margin on PCPS items and either wind it up or down depending on the final cost, or do you recommend only applying margin once the final cost is confirmed?
Up to the individual. So I always do an application across the whole job, just so it's captured against everything, because at the end of the day, I want to know what it is overall, because then we do a bit of back cost to make sure that we're covered. But if you need to do something to an individual item, absolutely you can. Again, it's just a preference. So sometimes we'll put, it might be 25 here, but I'll add an extra 2% contingency across some of my my quotes, so that I know I've got a little bit of a pool in there, because I can't necessarily have a contingency line item, because it's open book. So you can do things like that. Again, preference. My preference is to have a full markup amount, and then we just roll with it from there. But yeah.
Yeah, and Ben's saying there, Ben adding to, exclusions are just as important as the inclusions.
Oh man, that exclusions list and that general condition, sometimes huge.
So what do you mean, Ben? You're not going to be doing the gardening along with the house for the next year after it's built? can you load files into the quote letter from Michael? So when it comes to actually sending, so the quote itself is a document that Buildxact creates as a template that we provide. But when it comes to sending it out, you can go and add documents in. So when you go actually to send it, there'll be an option to add other files and things on top of it. And that will be anything that's inside Buildxact that you've loaded in, and anything that you can upload from your computer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a standard exclusions list, Tara, that you add in?
Yes, I do have standard notes of what I would add in, and then it's just built against what the job is as well. So for my commercial guys, our exclusions list is obviously different to our resi works. Yeah, and whatever our trades are putting as exclusions as well, I'll throw that into their scope too. So I'm like, well, you know, if it's something that we're not covering and they're not covering, client needs to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm realizing that I'm answering questions and then scrolling down, and then people are already answering the questions for me that I probably don't have to do.
That's teamwork. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Ben's answered the PDF additional PDFs and stuff in there. So Danielle mentioned, that conversation topic around with Susie. So yeah, this probably is a bit of a lot in there, but really kind of for newer people, it really just kind of shows you where you can get to at the system. But it's that whole don't run before you can walk kind of thing. So just keep it really, really simple. And if anyone there that is just starting out using and you just want some advice or a chat, you can always book in time with our trainers. So if you don't mind, because your screen is sharing there, Tara, if you go into that,
I'll stop.
I was going to say keep sharing because you had it open there, but
sorry,
I can share my screen at the end about how to get in touch with us and book training time in. So in the bottom left hand corner, there's a need help. So I'll just quickly share my screen and I'll jump back into the questions while I've got that there. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
So need help just here. Book a training session in, or you can watch the webinars on demand. For me personally, I love the tutorial videos. Like I think they're great in terms of to get into that. So live online training webinars. You've got the on-demand webinars, or you can schedule a one-on-one session. So if you get to that point and the training webinars aren't what you want, one-on-one session, you can do that. You've got a 30-minute session. You can hit schedule now, and we'll see how long the next booking is available. Obviously today's Friday, so I'm probably saying there's going to be no Friday ones yet. So you can go in for Monday 9 a.m. on Monday morning. So within a week you can normally get in. So definitely make the most out of that. I travel a lot, and I do like some of these Queensland road shows, and I get up to Cairns and stuff, and people are like, oh, I've been waiting for you to come up here so I can ask you a question. I'm like, just go online, book the time in. But you're waiting a month for me to come up so you can ask me a question when there's someone else that actually trains. So please make use of that. So let's just quickly, I'll just stop sharing and then I'll quickly finish off these questions. Oh God, there's still a lot. We've actually seen a Buildxact video to put in saying optional protocols. What do you do when you get revised plans that change the estimate? Good question.
Well, if it's during
You've done everything, it's probably going to be a bit of a kick in the guts, I think.
Oh yeah, it depends how far into it you are. You're like, it's great. Look, you've just got to, if it's something that you can just capture in your existing version that you've been building, then I would just upload those new plans and amend what needs to be amended, but make note in your notes section that, if there's anything a bit peculiar, it's like, hey, no, this was actually built using these plans versus the updated or the previous set, so that whoever's running the numbers understands that, but then also the client can see as well if there's meant to be, something on an old plan and then the new plan differentiation. It's just kind of keeping that line of communication. But yeah, it's a pain in the ass otherwise. Like, honestly, sometimes you just have to copy a whole new job over of that you've been working on and get rid of the plans and just upload again as you need to if it's changed a lot.
Yeah, if it's changed a lot, I mean, if it's something being added onto the plan, then you could probably work around it. But it becomes very, very difficult otherwise.
Yeah.
So thanks, Ben, for jumping in and answering that question around the decking. Joanna, regarding the pricing assistant in the US, at this point in time, I don't think there's any discussions to add that in. So in the US, there's some pricing assistant stuff in there of getting that over. Obviously, here we've got a lot more suppliers that are feeding direct prices into Buildxact, so doesn't seem to be as much of a need for that over here. But I don't think it's completely out of the question. I just don't think there's any plans in the short term to do that. A different markup one. Benjamin, I understand what you're saying around the markup side of things. So no, if you add markup, it will double the markup. So if you add markup on the category or the line, it doesn't override what's on the job overall. So it basically double applies markup. So if you want to do it that way, my recommendation would be to don't add job-wide markup, add category level markup. So it might be 25%, for example, put on all the categories 25%, and then the particular items that you want to have a different markup, remove the category markup and then add the markup on the lines individually. So rather than you having to go in and add every single line across the whole project, which is obviously taking a little while to do, you can do the categories and then the specific ones that you want to change. Then for that category, you can go and add the markup. Hopefully I've explained that. Did I make sense what I was saying there, Tara? Yeah? Awesome. There was a question earlier on about can we get Tara's standard template? And I'm assuming the answer to that is going to be no, because that's a lot of information.
You can get a little tiny little snippet. I'm actually giving away part of that, but no, not that big one. It's,
have you got that link, Tara, that you can put up?
Yes, I do. Now, if I put this in the chat box, is it going to get lost? Because that thing sounds like it's going wild. Holy moly!
It is a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what template is this one you're providing, Tara, for?
This will just be a basic garage.
Yeah.
So it'll still have some pretty good, standard information in there. It'll just get you thinking a bit more as well, I think, that's what I want it to do, is to encourage you to go, set some of your own standards as well in there. Yeah.
Awesome. How do you add a total markup over variation instead of adding markup on every variation line?
What was the question, sorry?
How do you add a total markup over a variation instead of adding
you can't. You have to do individual lines.
Yeah.
Guys,
for those of you that are still on, some people have dropped off a little bit, but if we did, because we were talking about this, Tara, about doing kind of this more in detail in terms of how you manage the job part of it, would that be something that people would be open to? So Tara could talk through maybe how you do variations, Tara, how you manage your purchase orders, that kind of thing. Would that be something people would be open to seeing? Yeah, just definitely pop it in at the bottom. I'm really struggling to catch up on these questions.
Yes, I think that's a yes.
Yeah, I assumed it would have been. And just quickly, guys, is December, if we did, and I'm not sure if you're around in December, is December too late in the year to do a webinar? Because we've got some webinars already booked in before then, so it's going to be quite difficult for us to fit them in without just absolutely bombarding people with emails for webinars. But would December work for you, Tara, if we did one in December?
Should be fine. We just need to
figure out dates and stuff. Yeah, we can talk about it more
on a Friday. Yeah. Christmas.
Yeah, not Christmas Day, definitely. So yeah, Leanne, sorry guys, I'm definitely skipping some of these, but yeah, the webinar will be available to rewatch. It's going to be on our YouTube page, the same with all the others, and there'll be a link that goes out as well.
Oh, hey, can I do a shameless plug as well?
Yeah.
So for any of my Melbourne people, I've actually one of my builders, Beth from Beth Builds, we've teamed up and we're doing a joint venture to raise money for TIAX, which is this is a conversation starter, and they do mental health support, much like Mates in Construction, but just a bit different. And so we've got a lawn bowls charity event on Friday, the 17th November, between 2 and 5 at the Princess Bowls Club in Carlton. Sorry, I'm not from here, so I'm like, what's the name? Yeah, Princess Park Bowls Club in Carlton. And tickets are $25, which includes a game, $10 donation to charity, and food, and entry into, like, we have a bevy of some of the sickest prizes. So you get a ticket into the lucky draw prize, but then we're going to have a raffle as well. And our goal is to raise $2,000. I raised $1,000 in Queensland for the one we did last month, or this month, sorry. So hoping to double it here in Victoria. So yeah, hopefully people can come. Hopefully you can come, Julian.
Yeah. No, I'm going to try and be there.
Epic.
Local for me. So,
Yeah.
Tara, have you got a contact information link or something, an email that we can put in, or is that the link will take you there?
Yeah. So that mail, I just put the MailChimp one up. So
That takes you to it as well, because I've got Wade's asking for
yeah, that should. Otherwise, I've got my Instagram. If anybody uses the old IG, I'll put that in here, and then I'll also put my website as well. And that'll have all that kind of contact info, if that works for everybody. Yeah, because the link is actually, if you just subscribe, put your email in, then I'll be able to sort of contact you from there. Otherwise, my inbox will just be heckers. So I just try to streamline it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
James, probably something we'll take offline regarding the unit and measure and minimums in there. But when you, just to cover off, because I don't want to start sharing the screen again, but when you go into a recipe, you have those minimum increments or minimum requirement, on each line. So you see, just regarding setting that, obviously when you set that, that's going to adjust the recipe costs and things as well. But what is the best way to include optional costs to a project the client would like to upgrade but wants to know? So yeah, Braid, I think we kind of covered a little bit on that, but I guess there's no best possible way of doing it. But I mean, I always say to people, just add it in as a specification line as an upgrade option. Yeah, so John, the sample template, if you follow Tara's link there, there'll be a sample template in there that you can download.
Yeah.
Sorry, and also she'll send. Sorry.
Yeah, on the Instagram, if you go to the link tree, you can just do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a yes for that session. So maybe Tara, you and I can catch up and discuss kind of when we think that maybe works.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder why that link's not working.
Is it not working? It was working for me.
Was Q&A section? Oh, okay. Sorry, I might be putting it in the wrong spot.
No, the link, I found the link there. I'll just repost it again for you, Tara, just because.
Yeah, I put it up a fair bit. There we go. Thank you. A bit earlier. Anyway, if you go to my Instagram, follow the link tree on there as well. Will be easy to find through there.
Maybe you yeah, Tara, you put it to hosts and panelists. It's only me that got it.
Oh.
Yeah, I did that. I did that earlier on. I typed in.
Sorry, guys. Technology. It's not my strong suit. I build houses.
Wait, I have been to WA with Buildxact before, with West Builders. I haven't been for a little while, but it is my plan next year to get over more. Awesome. So yeah, that link is now sorted. So hopefully that everyone can see that now.
Oh, what about NZ? Actually, I want to build some stuff in NZ. So let's chat across the pond. I'm keen for that. So um, anyone who's building in the snow or a passive house, it's one of my goal, like one of my dream things. I mean, I've built passive houses, but in the snow, just just put it out there, you know. You never know.
Awesome. I think that
Don't eat the yellow
the
snow.
other
Yeah. See, the thing is, you'll build it obviously out of snow season, hopefully, if you don't get delayed. But then at handover time, you've got to be able to test this stuff. So who's about it?
Awesome, guys. I think that's mostly it. But it
hmm.
seems like, yeah, it seems great feedback. So I'm glad that that we did this. And yeah, it's more of an advanced class. But I think it's definitely a go to do this from the CA kind of side, Tara,
Mm.
in terms of managing the project.
Yeah, and I've got all those oh man, I got a bevy of solid templates which you can all get discounts on. I'm not giving that stuff away for free, but like yeah, my crew get a lot of yeah, I think that would be worthwhile. Just to understand, you know, we've done the whole why set things out with the numbers, but then to run it, and it's more understanding as well, to get things across the line for the banks and the clients, because that becomes a really big issue of, you know, you got to set things out exactly how they want it and everything. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Bo saying how much for the big template.
oh, yeah, well, depends on the size of the job.
All right, we can probably call it there because I think that's most of the things done. But yeah, guys, really, really glad that you got some value out of that. And obviously, thanks so much for Tara for coming on board. Oh, sorry, Matt's realised that the Queensland
Oh.
timing. So Matt, just the link will come out, but you can also check on our YouTube page. That will also be up on the YouTube page. Make sure you go Buildxact Australia, and the video will be there.
Yeah, I've been doing that stuff all week.
Yeah, 280 integration speed. We don't know. It will be when the team can
Yeah.
get it out. But I think they'll be. Yeah, look, it's not going to be 6-7 months away, kind of thing, as far as I'm aware, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, but we'll dial it off there. Tara, thanks so much again for coming aboard. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me and listening to me to my TED talk.
Yeah, that's been
Yeah,
great.
awesome. Thank you,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye.